Number one, Tom Brady. Okay, we'll just get that one out of the way.
Yeah, definitely Brady's one.
Hello world and welcome back to Gridiron Campbell, the only podcast that puts its money where its mouth is. I'm your host, Rich Ryan, and I'm joined by three members, but not three members of the collective. We've got Donnie DP Peters, the resident moves himself, Mo Nuwara, and a very special guest who, although we were anti-sweating you in that event, ODB, because our boy Mickey Doft was going deep in the 1500 Raz, you did add another bracelet to your resume this summer. You also crept over the $7 million in lifetime earnings. Mr. ODB, David Baker, welcome back. Thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for that nice introduction. As I've told you guys before, my favorite podcast, football season. It's the first one I listen to on whatever day, Friday morning usually, when you do the Thursday night ones. I guess you guys were doing Friday for a little while, but yeah, my favorite thing. I love to scream at the podcast while I'm driving my car to a poker game or home from a poker game or whatever, and say these idiots, but but a lot of times I pick up things from you guys too. There's a lot of things that you guys bring up that I hadn't thought about. I like the fact that you guys all have different processes and come to different answers. So the things that I think are important, I can put more weight into, and the processes that I don't really, I can just slightly ignore, or maybe sometimes you solidify my opinion and sometimes, goes the other way.
Well, hopefully we'll give the listeners some opinions today on some NFC team futures. That is the focus. Shouts out to everybody watching this on YouTube. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We need you to come through, because basically if we don't hit that subscribe threshold, we can't monetize or anything like that. So we need you guys, and all of you guys listening on your podcatcher, also please rate, review, 5 stars only, like my guy, Geno Smith. Before we get into the football, though, I brought up some poker accolades, and Mo won some bank yesterday as well, as I reach for the sounder here. Almost did the damn thing at the MSPT in Chicago. Battled some legends. Alpaya, Kyle Julius. You outlasted them, but unfortunately could not outlast the entire field. 5th place, right, Mo?
Sixth, unfortunately, a 3 big blind stack laddered past me.
That's disgusting.
I don't care about money.
Yeah, ICM's for poor people, so you're good.
Had to have some heart and go for the win. I lost a flip for like a third of the chips or something with 6 people left when I was 2 of 6. So pretty painful, probably like $50K in equity, but that's the life we choose. So just have to go with it.
And last, but certainly not least, not a new father, but a father of a newborn, your second child. Your son is here, Donnie. How is the missus? How is everything going out in the desert?
Well, I'm rusty. Can't work the mute button.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I know, right? No, everything's great, man. Kids doing well. Both kids are doing well. The older sister is a bit protective of younger brother. My baby brother, as she constantly refers to him, pulling him from our hands, constantly wanting to hold him all the time. Even wants to help change diapers and all that stuff. So fingers crossed.
Wow.
Fingers crossed that keeps up for the next 8 years of my life. That would be great. Yeah. And yeah, things are well.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. As we did with the AFC futures, let's take a look back at our way too early futures and how the difference in the market is compared to when we touted them way back in May. And I gotta say, even though we only gave out 5 NFC bets, 4 of them have moved in our favor, starting with my NFC South wager of the Saints winning the division. At the time, they were plus 135 on FanDuel. They're now plus 130, DraftKings plus 120, so a little bit of movement in our favor. Mo gave out the Packers to win the NFC North at plus 500. You're looking at plus 350 and plus 400 now, so moving in our direction as well. Mo also gave Panthers NFC South, which I think we'll be hearing about again. That was plus 380 at the time. In one market, it's plus 360. In another, it's plus 400, so that's kind of in the middle. But the other 2 winners DP was all in on the Vikings. One to win in the NFC North at plus 310. That's come down to plus 260 or plus 275, or in the desert at circa plus 280. And then Vikings to win the NFC. That was at plus 1,700. I'm seeing it as low as plus 1,200. So 4 winners in terms of market movement. 1 neutral for that Panthers NFC South. And let's start with the Minnesota Vikings, because this was a point of contention last year between ODB and the crew. ODB was all in on this fraudulent Vikings team that continued to perform above expectation. I'm glad I'm making DP laugh. They just found a way to keep on doing it until the lights shone brightest in the playoffs, and then they got their shit kicked stuffed in by Daniel Jones and the Giants. But ODB, you're back to some exposure on this NFC North squad. You like them to win the division again. Talk about it.
Yeah, I don't love them like I did last year. Last year, I was really heavy on the Vikings. They were getting no respect, and I thought that they had a very clear path to victory and to multiple home games, which they did. They fell 1 win short of getting the 2 seed, which would have opened up multiple home playoff wins, but in reality, it didn't matter because they lost the first one. But when we're looking at these long shot futures, really all I want is a shot. I just want to kind of be in there and have my team have a home playoff game and have a chance. I do think that the offense is one of the best offenses in the league. They're just going to get better this year, adding Addison on the outside, and having Hawkinson for a complete season should be great. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's the best receiver, or one of the best receivers in the league, and Cousins is a pretty adequate quarterback. All the problems stemmed on the defense last year, and this year they didn't really get any better personnel wise. So definitely concerned
worse
about the defense.
They got worse. They
a massive upgrade coaching on the defensive side. Brian Flores is an excellent defensive coach, and we've seen him with the Patriots lead players that were not necessarily highly touted to form a great unit. I think you probably are going to get some value on the overs on Minnesota early on in the season, but it's just banking on the fact that I think Flores can do enough to scheme. He's a great schemer, and he'll put his players in positions to win. And as the season goes on, I think they'll get better. The offense we already know is going to score. And the division is one of the weaker divisions. And when I say weaker, I think all the teams in that division are semi-competent. They don't have the slugs like, the AFC South or anything like that. But what they don't have is a juggernaut team. And the Lions are getting a lot of love in the markets, a little too much for my taste. So I had to pick a different route. I don't really trust the Bears to make that big jump. I do kind of like the Packers a little bit, but I just think that, you're dealing with a lot more experience with this Vikings team. And even if they were fraudulent last year and they drop back, I mean, they still only have to win 9 or 10 games. So a few of those go the other way. I think they, getting 3-1 is a pretty healthy price for a team that has a legitimate shot. I mean, they're even money to, I think, break 8.5 wins. So, or to make the playoffs or whatever. So I really feel like there's some value there with the Vikings still.
Donnie retains his love for the Vikings, both to win the division and to win the NFC, but he also sprinkled in a Packers division bet as well at plus 400. And I think you're going off of what ODB was saying there too with regards to the Lions, where if you're attacking this division, probably the best way to do so is to try and fade a Lions team that I actually really like. And I like that they retained Ben Johnson. They have an incredible offensive line. It's the perfect setup for a quarterback like Jared Goff, who needs to be in perfect structure to succeed. But the market has just overinflated this team's expectations to the point where it's forcing us to go elsewhere. So DP, you're pretty much full fade on the 2 other good teams in this division.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it about the Lions. Like, I think we all like them probably to some degree. Do we like them plus 125 to win the division or whatever it is right now? I mean, no. So I'm looking for ways to fade them in any way that I can. I think the Vikings, as ODB mentioned, have a really good offense. My one concern in regards to that defensive improvement is mostly about how long it takes for Brian Flores to come in and get things kind of moving in the right direction. But if this team takes to it relatively quickly, I think people are going to realize that the Vikings are a really good squad. And honestly, it's 2023 NFL. Who needs defense anyway? Just score a crap load of points and we'll all be good. So yeah, I really liked another thing that ODB mentioned in regards to the Vikings just quickly is the Hawkinson thing. You know, he came in last year. It's going to take some time. I loved him at Detroit. You know, he's just a guy that I always kind of gravitated towards. And I think he's just going to have that rapport that builds with Kirk Cousins and going forward. So, yeah, my plays on the Vikings and the Packers. I mean, Packers, shout out to Mo for getting on that one early. I'm a little bit late to the party here, but, you know, I can get plus 400 over on DraftKings, which I think is still a good price. You know, I think Jordan Love's going to have his growing pains in that first year as the starting role, but he might fit LaFleur's offense a little bit better. Might be that guy that wants to be, or a head coach that wants to be more run first with a game manager type of quarterback, not an alpha quarterback like Rodgers was. So maybe, you know, Love just gets in there and does good enough to get the job done in a division that I don't think is overall like that great. You know, going back to what ODB said, they don't really have that runaway squad in it.
Definitely interested in these Packers weapons as well, which should make the transition a little easier for the quarterback. I mean, we're all in love with Christian Watson last year and how he exploded in the second half. Romeo Doubs had his struggles, but he looked like a pro as soon as he stepped on the field. And Luke Musgrave, you can't go a day without getting a glowing report out of Green Bay about Musgrave and his size and his ability at the tight end position. Mo, ODB.
I just wanted to jump in real quick with the Packers. If you do like the Packers at 4-1, I think you might as well just sprinkle a little 65-1 to win the Super Bowl, because the reality is that if you think they're going to be good, then you might as well just have this monster future. If they win the division, they get a home playoff game, at least one, and you know, there's a likelihood and there's a path to the number 2 seed as well. So you're betting on them being good. And if they are good, and if Jordan Love is the guy that, you know, is pretty competent and good enough to lead them to a division title, then you might as well just have a big Super Bowl future out there, because they're going to be a lot less than that if they're actually good. So I think their price is pretty competitive, circa 65-1. I know other markets are a lot lower, but if you're in Vegas and you do think the Packers have a legitimate chance of winning that division, I just rather almost fire it at 65-1 than the 4-1. You can probably hedge out some and take a nice profit and still roll from there.
I thought I timed it perfect. We're all rusty. It's the preseason. Mo, you've pivoted off of your Green Bay. I shouldn't say pivot off of. You've let your Green Bay click from May lie as it may, and you're turning your attention to the Chicago Bears, who I don't know if you know, but Justin Fields is now a revelation at the quarterback position. He's going to have 50 yards per attempt this season, despite having not a single positive air yard in the offense. But Mo, nevertheless, taking under 7.5 wins for the Bears, which is going to play into a bet that I'm going to mention in a bit. You're getting plus money, plus 125. Talk about it, Mo.
Yeah, Justin Fields is my guy. It hurts me to fade him here, but I mean, what have we seen from Justin Fields that is convincing anyone that he's an above average quarterback, or especially can move the ball through the air in must-pass situations? Because even when he was having some good games last year, you would see the Bears basically wilt in final drive situations repeatedly, because once safeties were just sitting back and like waiting for routes to develop and reading him, I mean, he was throwing some really, really ugly interceptions. So given that I still think the offensive line is going to be pretty bad, like I know they added some talent, but still not like a super talented group by any stretch. And having a rookie tackle, even if he is ultimately a good player, makes me pretty nervous there. I know the pass catchers are pretty solid. I think the offense is overall going to be better, but man, this defense is atrocious, I think, especially up front. I know that they shored up linebackers, and they got a couple good ones. If Tremaine Edmonds last year was real, then they have a couple of very good linebackers, him and Edwards. But like up front on the D, I don't know where the pass rush is coming from, and I don't know who's gonna make a play at the line of scrimmage, stopping opposing running games. So without a secondary that I believe in at all, like probably a below average secondary, I don't know how Chicago is going to stop anyone else from passing. So if they're allowing a bunch of points, Justin Fields in must pass situations at the end of games, I don't know. It just looks like a recipe for a lot of high scoring losses to me, to be honest.
Well, if you're bearish on the Bears, pun intended, let's move to the NFC West, where I have a very spicy bet. Rams, most improved team, so most wins improved year over year, plus 1,800. So essentially, I looked over the last 3 years. You need to win 5 or 6 more games from the previous season to win this bet. And for the Rams, that would be 10 or 11 wins, which, seems like a lot. Seems pretty hefty. However, if you start doing some math, the alternative over that you're getting offered at over 10.5 is plus 800. So right away, if they hit that number, you're already getting twice your money by betting this. And essentially, all you need to do is fade the Bears winning this award, I think, because the Bears were obviously a 3-win team last year. So for them to win this award, they need to get to 8 or 9 wins. But they're such ridiculous chalk in this market. They're plus 210. The other teams that were bottom feeders last year, are they really going to be competitive? Texans need to win 8 or 9 games. Brett might tell you.
Brett's going to tell you absolutely.
But really? Cardinals, 9 to 10 wins. Colts, 9 to 10 wins. Broncos, 10 to 11 wins. Raiders, 11 to 12 wins. I don't think very many of those teams are in the neighborhood to winning this bet. And you look at the Rams last year, second worst injury luck in the NFL, the worst injury luck on the offensive side of the ball, 5th worst fumble luck. Stafford's back. Kupp is back, hopefully. Fingers crossed. McVay decides to coach instead of taking a cushy, $300 million Brady-type deal to go into broadcasting. So he's going to be grinding out and not just kicking back. It's going to be a little defense sold separately, but we saw with the Hawks last year that if you can generate enough offense in this division, I think you can get to the win amount. So I kind of like this bet. And I know we did the AFC Futures last week, but I do want to mention that in this market, the Titans are plus 7,500. Obviously, they would need 12 to 3 wins to get there, but they're all over at 12.5 is plus 1,100. So, there's something's wrong there with the math. That if they can win most improved at 75 to 1, but it's only 11 to 1 for them to get there on the alt over, something's not adding up there. So just want to mention the Titans as interesting in this market. But yeah, give me the Rams plus 1,800. And I was happy to see somebody else on the Rams train. DP likes the Rams to win the division at plus 1,000. Let's go.
Very, very, very small taste. Okay, don't just go, saying that I'm fully driving the Rams bandwagon here.
10-unit whale play. Vegas Dave, let's go.
This is, I also have a Seahawks to win the NFC West here. This is just coupled together because I'm kind of a fade on the 49ers. Not as much of a fade as I am on the Lions from the NFC North, but in regards to the 49ers, I don't know if I can fully trust whatever decides to be quarterback between Darnold, Purdy, whoever else is there, that I like what the Seahawks present. And if the Rams can turn things around, Rich, as you mentioned, getting things kind of back on the right track, they still have McVay. If Stafford is healthy, and all accounts say that he is healthy, the injuries across the roster can just get a little bit better. I know they lost some guys, but, addition by subtraction, right? This is also, I have them, I have them 10 to 1 on DraftKings and FanDuel. I think at Circa here in Las Vegas, they're 9 to 1. This is a 3-team division because the Cardinals don't count. Okay, they just don't count. So
they're in no man's land.
So can they win the division, out of those 3 teams? I mean, yeah, if something goes wrong for the 49ers, for sure.
ODB also has an NFC West tout, but it is my beloved Eugene Cyril Smith, the GOAT, the CPOE GOAT, to lead the Hawks to a division win.
Yeah, I'm out on this Rams team. To me, it's a 2-team division. This Rams team, the defense is going to be historically bad, and the offensive line is bad. They've got a immobile slug of a quarterback. They have one wide receiver.
Sounds a lot like the Vikings.
Well, they have multiple weapons on the Vikings team, and Kirk Cousins is a much better quarterback than Stafford. I know people love Stafford, but I'm not a Stafford guy, and I don't think this Rams team is good. That's kind of why I'm on the Niners. I really think, and not the Niners, the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are legit. I think Gino proved me wrong. Rule of don't be stubborn. And I did not think that the Seahawks were going to be good last year. I did not think that Gino had this in him. But look, guys get better. And that's the thing. You can't always just stick to your opinion because things change. Players get better. Players are coached. Players learn things. Sometimes things just click. And I think that it just clicked with Gino. And the weapons on the Seahawks, they might be the best in the NFL. I mean, other than maybe the Bengals, who has better skill position players than the Seahawks? They've got a young, improving defense, and the offensive line. I mean, Brandon Thorne is kind of the guy that I look to on offensive line, and he's got the Seahawks rated a lot higher than everybody else. He's got them in the top 10. So with those weapons, a good quarterback, and a solid defense, a coach that somehow, despite making terrible in-game decisions, seems to get his team ready to play way more often than he doesn't. It's just kind of like, Donnie said, kind of a fade on this Niners team. Although obviously we like all the parts that the Niners have and we like Kyle. But the reality is in this NFL, sometimes you do need a quarterback to run the ship. And, wouldn't surprise me if the Niners do win this division and their defense and lines and skill position players get them to 12 or 13 wins. But it also wouldn't surprise me if the Seahawks can compete and get up to that 11, win plateau themselves and put them in contention to win the division. So I'm getting almost 3-1 there. There are a lot of different ways to attack the Seahawks. You can bet them to win the Super Bowl. You can bet them to win the West. You can bet them to, to make the playoffs. I kind of like making the playoffs. To make the playoffs, you're getting basically even money with the Seahawks. So I think that's a really strong play. Even if they don't win the division, there's not a whole lot of teams coming out of the NFC for wild cards. So I think you can get there with 8 or 9 wins. So multiple paths to get there with the Seahawks.
Second straight division where we're fading the market leader here, Mo. I know you didn't have a bet that you sent, but I'd love to hear just your general sentiments on the NFC West and just some of the things that we've thrown out there.
A little more on ODB's side when it comes to the Rams for sure. I just, like I said, when I looked over that defensive roster, it reads like another team's backups, honestly. That's how bad their defense is on paper. And probably a little higher on the Niners, I guess, though. So I'm not too sure about Seahawks. I just think this division was pretty properly priced. It was the least interesting of, honestly, any division in the NFL for me to look over. Although you guys are making me wonder if I'm off on the Seahawks here. I do feel Gino was a wagon for me last year. I was on the Seahawks weekly, and that guy was covering every week. But I just feel if anything, we should expect some regression there, to be honest. Although,
but based on what? They did was add JSN and Charbonnet. All they did was add 2 great weapons to the offense.
But man, Gino was so good last year. It's just going to be hard to repeat that, given what he has done in the past. But maybe ODB is onto something when he says, some things click. Maybe player gets in the right system for him, whatever it might be. I definitely wouldn't rule that out. That's why I'm just like thinking this division's probably properly priced, but I'm not too. I guess I think I'm lower on the Seahawks defense too. I don't think they look that good. But I don't know, honestly. I'm looking over this Niners roster, and I have no idea how the Niners were as strong as they were last year on defense. I don't think this is like a top 5 defense on paper, to be honest.
Let's move to a division that is generally wide open, and that's the NFC South. And ODB, you and I are on the same wavelength where I want to find a way to back this Saints team. I said this on the way too early version of the Futures podcast that the Saints are the only adult in the room. Everybody is super excited about a Falcons team that has absolutely no quarterback on the roster. Everybody wants to find a way to hype up Frank Reich and the new look rookie 1.1 quarterback in Carolina. And I just can't do it. I can't do it for either of these teams, but I don't love the win total on the Saints. The division price is plus 130 isn't that delicious. I just can't find the right way to attack it. And maybe you're right. Well, yeah, I guess you didn't give a bet. You're in the same spot as I am as trying to find a way to attack this. And I just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I'm really high on the Saints. I don't really know what to do with them because, like you said, I don't really like the division odds, but like completely different than the Lions. I think all 3 of those teams below the Lions are competent and could, battle and have a chance at 8, 9, 10 wins. I don't really see the South the way you do. I think Tampa Bay is just as atrocious as all these other bottom feeder teams. Not Cardinal level, but pretty bad. I think they have 0 shot of winning the division. So now we're looking at a 3-team division. I think Carolina is pretty dusty as well. They have a small rookie quarterback with no weapons at all. Yes, the defense is good, but I mean, this is the year 2023, and defense can keep you in ball games, but they're not. Defense is not winning you games unless you're super, super elite. Same reason why I'm not really high on the Patriots. I know you talked about the AFC, but this team is kind of built like the Patriots, except for the fact that they have a 5'4" quarterback and no weapons at all. And I don't know. I don't see anything from Carolina that I like. So basically, it's a flip between the Saints and the Falcons. I don't really see where the Falcons are better than the Saints. I don't really think there's any place that they are. The Saints have by far a better quarterback. I mean, Derek Carr is actually a legitimate, decent NFL quarterback.
He is the new Dalton. He is the replacement level quarterback.
He's Kirk Cousins. I think he's fine. And not only that, the teammates seem to like Derek Carr. Like, I feel like he was really liked by this Raiders team, and I feel like everything coming out of New Orleans is they really like him. I just think the Saints are head and shoulders above the other teams in that division. So, there's a lot of love for the Falcons, but we're basically looking at a 2-team race, and I'm getting the better team, I think, at plus money. So I probably would just lean towards just betting the Saints to win the division, or just bet them to make the playoffs, or bet them to win over 8.5 or whatever the total you're finding in your market is. I don't know. I just want shares of the Saints, and I don't know if they have the ceiling that like the Seahawks have at that 28, 29 to 1 area, or the Chargers or the Jags or all these teams that are in the low 30s, high 20s to win the Super Bowl. But I do think the Saints are about as locky as you can get to make the playoffs or win the division. So, I want shares of the Saints.
Mo, we'll get to your Panthers love in a second. You retain an NFC South division winner ticket there with them, but I think you attacked this correctly. You went the Brett model, where I don't want to bet on either of these teams. It's a double fade, and you're just fading the Falcons and the Bucks. The Bucks more so, you're pressing your edge there by betting fewest wins at plus 950, which is actually kind of tasty. But you've also got Falcons under 8.5 wins. Is that number still floating out there? Falcons' worst record, like plus 7,000. Wasn't that a thing that we saw last time?
Yeah, it was like 70 to 1. I think Brett said it was actually, I saw 80 to 1. Brett said somebody hammered that because it's down to 60 to 1 now.
Still, I mean, This is a team that in 2023,
dude,
they just want to cram the ball.
Yeah, they're trying to win 1950s football in 2023 when they play home games in a dome. I don't understand what they're trying to do with that team. Like, if they were the Green Bay Packers playing in cold weather, whatever, I would somewhat understand it, but this is not going to work in the NFC South, I don't think. Yeah, I like their defense, actually. Like, I think they made legitimate steps to put together a pretty good defense, although I will have to say that they are very old up front, so probably a little more susceptible to injuries than most teams. Yeah, I just, when you have maybe the worst quarterback in the NFL and you're expected to go 9-8, like, something is just not computing for me here.
It doesn't make sense.
It's plus money to the over. I mean the under is plus money on the under. So, like, they're legitimately expected to win 9 games when they might have the worst quarterback in the NFL. I mean, we know in 2023, like ODB was saying, we know quarterback and head coach. These are the 2 most important things in football. I don't think we know what Arthur Smith is, because he's just been blah so far. I don't think we have any reason to be confident in him, that's for sure. So I don't understand any of the Falcons' love. I know RAS, which is a big, well-regarded sharp betting group, hammered Falcons over, and I think that since that moved up, because it was 7.5 initially, now it's 8.5 with juice to the over. Now I think it's just clear-cut value on Atlanta Falcons under, where before I was a little bit interested in Falcons under. Now I'm really interested in Falcons under.
If you're interested in Falcons under, which I agree with everything you said, you can bet them at Circa. It's -110 both ways to make the playoffs or miss the playoffs. So I kind of think the miss the playoffs is a pretty fair bet there. The one thing that the Falcons do have going for them is that they have the easiest schedule in the NFL. Them and the Saints have the 2 easiest schedules, and they do get to play Tampa twice and Carolina a couple of times, and I think they have a couple of other easy games on the schedule. I think really what it comes down to is people just are assuming that Arthur Smith is this run god because, Derrick Henry, but he had a complete outlier of a running back in Tennessee. So he might have that again in Bijan. We don't know, but I want my quarterback to look a little better than Desmond Ridder does. And I agree with Mo. To me, he's, if they had Derek Carr, this is a team I would go ahead and I would put them as the favorites in the division. You just give me somebody who can complete third down passes. They have weapons in Pitts and London. So, I mean, they do have the start. And if Ridder is good, then you're probably going to lose these Falcons bets. But I'm with you, Mo. I don't really think Ridder's the answer.
I do think Smith is actually a pretty good run designer. I mean, something Algier had like 1,100 yards rushing last year in situations.
But they had a great O-line, but that's also what I mean when I say, like, they're designing their team to win 1950s football.
Yeah.
Like, they have a great stable of running backs and a great O-line. They'd be in business in 1960.
And then talk about the Bucs. The Bucs absolutely bottoming out. The good thing in this scenario is that maybe Mike Evans, available at the trade deadline, comes up to MetLife, catch some passes from A-Rod.
So this one is basically a bet on what I think is a very, very low floor for the Tampa Bay Bucs. I mean, they actually still have a lot of talent remaining from those Super Bowl runs, but I'm not sure how much of it is going to even, 1, move the needle, and 2, be engaged all season. This could be the Denver Broncos of 2023, honestly, where, like, the defense is, like, pretty good, and then they just end up wilting and quitting late in the season when the offense is not scoring anything, and a poorly coached team, really poorly coached team. I think maybe the worst coached team in the NFL, to be honest. And I have to say, like, there's definitely enough talent on this team. If Baker Mayfield plays halfway decent, I mean, they could be in contention. I know ODB said they probably can't be, and he's probably right. But there's a super combustible combination here of an injury-prone and mistake-prone quarterback in Baker Mayfield behind an offensive line that looks, to me, pretty bad. I'm seeing a rookie penciled in to start, and my buddy sent me a couple weeks ago, Tristan Wirfs, I guess, is like having to see sports psychiatrists because he's struggling so bad, switching from right tackle to left tackle. I mean, is there a quarterback you'd less want to have behind a Swiss cheese O-line than Baker Mayfield? Honestly, he's just going to get hurt and or fling the ball to the defense. And then look at these backup quarterbacks. Okay, I kind of liked Kyle Trask coming out in the draft. He has not completed a meaningful pass, so we would have seen him do that by now, I think, if he was going to be anything. And John Wolford. So yeah, it could be really, really bad if and when Baker Mayfield goes down behind the Swiss cheese O-line. I know that the Cardinals are incredibly awful, and I'm looking over that roster, and I have to say, I get why they're plus 220 to be the worst team, because it is really hard to put together a worse NFL roster than what the Cardinals have done. Congratulations to them, because they have done something amazing here. I don't know if they have like a position group that's like above average.
It's a good thing they didn't trade their first round pick next year for an edge that might not be that amazing.
It's like so unreal how bad the Cardinals are going to be from top to bottom. But there is a chance if Baker Mayfield goes down, that the Bucs could be worse. I know that they have way more talent than these other teams, but I still think 10-1-ish is worth a shot.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was the Texans who made that trade, right? Texans.
Doesn't this just show how great our Lord and Savior Tom Brady was? That he won a Super Bowl with this team. He led this team to the playoffs. This team was like NFC favorites last year, and now we're betting them to be the worst team in the entire NFL, and the only difference is no Thomas Brady.
This revisionist history is outrageous.
I agree.
Guy was throwing the 4 Hall of Famers and playing against a team in the Super Bowl that was missing 4 offensive linemen. It's just outrageous.
I can't believe we're counting that make the playoffs last year. That was embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to say that I bet on the Buccaneers in that game, plus whatever at home against Dallas. That was like the worst bet of my life.
Yeah, I remember screaming at you guys that Cowboys were way the right side. And nobody listened to me. All right, let's move to probably the most boring division in all of football, I think, and that's the NFC East. You're going to have your people that get their pom-poms out and get excited about those Dallas Cowboys, but, I mean, the Eagles are just a juggernaut of all juggernauts, both sides of the ball. I mean, from a coaching standpoint, Sirianni went from an idiot at the podium to one of the sharpest dicks in the West immediately, always going for it, always pushing every edge. But before we get to the boring Eagles, DP's got a very interesting bet that he sent over that I quite like, and that's Commanders Washington, formerly racial slurs, formerly football team, now commies. Under 2.5 division wins, minus 155. This is nice, DP. Basically, we're holding our fingers tightly crossed that the Giants can have a pulse against the commies.
Yeah, I mean, Eagles are going to beat the Commanders twice. So are the Commanders going to go 3 for 4 against the Cowboys and the Giants? I mean, I don't see it. I think it's going to be really hard to do that. So I know this is, kind of a heavy favorite. Minus 155 at DraftKings is where I was able to find this. But, I mean, give it to me. I just don't see how. I know the Commanders, we've been on them in years past, mostly because of their defense. But who's their quarterback? Sam Howell? What are they doing? I mean, what's going on there? And if you can find it, I mean, listen, I'll throw it out there. Riverboat Ron, first coach fired. Let's go. They got the guy waiting in the wings.
He's got to be such a favorite, though.
He's like the 4th or 5th guy on the board. Plus 700.
New ownership group.
They just brought in Bieniemy. He's waiting right there.
The second that he tries to put Brisket in a game when they should be on full-on tank mode, the owner should just come down and just yank Riverboat off the side.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, come on. But yeah, under 2.5 division wins, I think here is... I looked at them, honestly, just because of the quarterback situation, where they stand in the division at having the worst record in the NFL. I think I found plus 1,700. It wasn't as high as I wanted there. So I ultimately went away from that and went with this bet. But I think the Commanders are just going to be pretty bad overall.
All right, let's talk Eagles. My favorite bet with them, honestly, is best record in the NFL, plus 800. I don't understand why they're behind KC and Cincy in most markets. I mean, do people forget what conference the Eagles play in and what conference these other teams play in, and that they all have to play each other, and that the AFC North is a tough conference and the AFC East is a tough conference, and the AFC West is not a bunch of slouches, whereas the NFC is a joke, man. This is a team that won 14 games last year, and Jalen Hurts missed 2 games. Like, it's outrageous, the high-end outputs in the range of outcomes for this Eagles team. All they did was strengthen, too. I mean, their biggest loss was probably C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but it's at a position where you can scheme and kind of fill that hole, and they just add Jalen Carter, who inexplicably falls to them in the draft. Perfect plug-and-play guy into their already elite defensive line. And then you get Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift, who are probably both better than Miles Sanders. The Niners do have an easier schedule, 5th according to Vegas win totals. But I'm just so bearish on their quarterback situation that I think the Eagles, when you run the simulation 1,000 times, are just going to have a better record than them. So give me plus 800. I feel like this is way out of whack. I feel like it should be like 400 or 500. ODB went more of a standard route with win totals and division, but you two, once again,
that's a great call, Rich. I like that 8-1 on having the best record. I know you guys aren't, and I'm not really one to just tout the favorites in these preseason things, and we're looking for teams that can make a splash. And last year, one of my big tickets was Eagles to win the division. I got them plus a couple, I think 220 or something when I booked them, and it ended up moving way down. But I don't really see how the Eagles fail. I mean, obviously injuries happen, but the Eagles have a stellar defense. They have the best offensive line in football. They have a quarterback that is trustworthy. They have weapons all over the field. They have a coach we trust. Really, the only downside is that they lost both coordinators. But that's kind of it. I think that the coordinators that they got probably are just going to come in and probably try to run much the same. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of changes. You don't really need to revolutionize the schemes when your team was 15-2 and basically a coin flip in the Super Bowl. I mean, I think the Eagles are by far the safest team. They're going to be there in the end, and 8-1. I mean, if you play this season out, a bunch of times, the Eagles are going to have the best record more than 1 out of 8 times. So, or I guess 1 out of 9 times to break even at 8-1. So, that's a great call. I want shares of this Eagles team. I don't really care how you do it. Circa seems to have like the best price on them to win the division. They're like minus 120, whereas other places, Pinnacle's like minus 160, 170. So I think there's a lot of value on the Circle line. So I don't know. Maybe they just got a big wager on the Cowboys or something. Maybe that's why they moved it. But yeah, I don't really see the Giants. I mean, talk about the Vikings doing it with smoke and mirrors. The Giants were, they were completely fraudulent. We like Daniel Jones. We like Dable, but at the end of the day, this team was, a lot more lucky than good. So I think the Commanders are going to be decent, but I think Donnie's price is really great, and is the concept behind it is very smart. If you just assume that they're going to lose all 3 road games, I mean, they have to win 2 of those 3 home games. I guess you have to win all the home games if you're Washington.
So gotta win. You gotta
yeah.
sweep.
So I like that
games.
call as well. So I think those are, you guys came up with some really smart ways to attack this division.
I don't think people are making enough of Mike McCarthy running the offense in Dallas. I think people are excited about Kellen Moore running the offense in LA with the Chargers, but they're not also keeping that same energy, as the kids say, with the Cowboys, with Mike McCarthy taking over play calling. Like, I think this might be an egregious error from, let's be honest, an ownership group that's done a pretty good job of drafting and personnel and coordinator decisions to just hand the reins over to Mike McCarthy. Seems like a massive.
Yeah, but rule of trenches. I mean, the Cowboys do have dominating offensive line. Addition by subtraction, getting out Zeke and giving the ball more to Pollard. They got Brandon Cooks, who definitely opens up things. CD, we already know is elite. So I mean, offensively, they do lose more, which hurts the play calling and the scheming and everything. But they're still very dominant at the line, and their skill position players are still really good. I mean, I think most of us could probably coach that offense to a 9-10 win season. So I'm not just throwing the Cowboys away, but I do think the Eagles are superior.
I'm a little Tyron Smith, man. How long can that guy keep doing it? I'm a little. This offensive line is teetering. Mo's nodding over there.
I totally agree. I'm not in agreement that this is a dominating O-line anymore. They remind me of the Saints a little bit. I just think the talent level, aging, it's degraded there. They're still solid. I totally agree with basically everything you guys are saying, though. The Cowboys are very good. I think they should be very good. Their offense should be great. It depends, though, on some injuries. Like, they're one of the more thin teams, I would say, up front for sure, and at wide receiver. And yeah, Brian Schottenheimer, offensive coordinator, that doesn't inspire me. The defense is really good, though, and really well coached by Dan Quinn. So I see the Cowboys as a strong team, but I totally agree. I think the Eagles have the highest floor in the NFL, honestly, of anybody. They have the deepest team in the NFL. I honestly think their second unit could be like not the worst team in the NFL. I don't even think it would be all that close. They're just elite at multiple positions with really good depth basically across the board. They have the best backup quarterback in the league, probably Marcus Mariota.
I was gonna say they might be QB injury proof too. I love
that's what addition. I mean. It's just, you can just do anything. This team is just going to be really good. The only wild card, same thing the ODB said, is just the coordinators. We don't know what's going to happen there, but the only even like remotely weak point I see is maybe the secondary is just going to be average. I don't know about a couple of these players. Maddox is just okay, and then the safety play could take a hit, like you said, Rich. But man, this roster is just so incredibly well built.
Safety is just such a position you could paper over with scheme, though. It's quickly becoming the running back of defense, where as long as someone's not clueless back there and not allowing people to just streak past them, you can kind of paper over it with scheme and technique. I know this was the NFC Futures podcast, but ODB did send me one AFC click. You did mention Brandon Staley pre-pod as well, so I'll cede the floor to you for those two AFC clicks. Shocking, an Auburn guy trying to fade a Florida.
Yeah, Mo doesn't want me to blow it for him, but I'm out on Anthony Richardson. I mean, I might come back in later. I'm not saying this guy can't learn how to play quarterback. I'm not saying that he has, zero future in the NFL, but I am saying in the year 2023, I do not trust him to run an NFL offense. And what the Colts have is barely an NFL offense anyway. We've got a disgruntled running back who's the best player on your team, which we already know the running backs don't matter. They don't have that good of line. They don't have a very good defense. And they don't have very good receivers. They have Michael Pittman, who is very good, and then Austin Doolin. Isn't that how you guys do it here on the Gridiron? Something Doolin.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm completely out on the Colts. 14-1, the last team to get a win. On the flip side, obviously the Texans have to be decent for this to come through because the Texans play the Colts early. I do like the Texans this year. I'm with Brett. I think the Texans are going to be decent. I mean, the problem is the AFC is just so damn deep. Like, you can't even really bet them to make the playoffs or to win the division or something like that. But I do think a 500 record is in play, and that's the team that I would think would that would be the team that I would choose as the most improved team. They signed both tackles. Their offensive line is really good. The CJ Stroud at least can throw a football. And I think Ryans is a serious upgrade at coach. So I really like what the Texans have. So that kind of feeds into my play in the Colts at 14-1 to be the last team to get a win. Feel free to place all the unders you want on Colts, miss the playoffs, worst record, whatever. I mean, you're getting good prices on those. So I like that. My favorite play that I have, and the one that I have bet myself, is on Brandon Staley to win the Coach of the Year, a coach that I have done.
Don't be modest. Don't be modest. Not only did you place the
I did
bet,
move the market.
You moved the market.
It was 37-1 on for days. On Saturday, I bet it. It didn't move. So it wasn't the bet that moved it, but I did tout this Brandon Staley at 37-1 to win the Coach of the Year on VSiN on a couple of their shows. And now today, 22-1. So you might have missed it, but there might be other places you might be able to find it. My case for this is Brandon Staley, we know, is a gambler and has come up on the short side of some of his gambles. When you have a better scheme, you have a better offensive coordinator that is actually not throwing, 1.2 yards down the field on 3rd and 7. Maybe they complete some of these. Maybe they get more first downs. Maybe they score more. I think there's a very realistic path to the Chargers being a top 2 seed in the AFC. They just have to get by the Chiefs. Yes, the Chiefs are good. They've been dominant, but at some point, the erosion of skill position players and Travis Kelce's age and Patrick Mahomes, freestyling it back there, sometimes those things just catch up with you. So I think that the Chargers legitimately have one of the top 5 rosters in the NFL. They have one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. They have skill position players all over the board. I think this team has a realistic shot of 13, 14 wins. So this is a way for me to get them at 37-1. If they dethrone the champs and take that division, which they're only 3-1 to do so, he's got to be a top 2 or 3 choice to win Coach of the Year. I mean, if they have 12 or 13 wins and they defeat the Chiefs a couple of times and take that division, I don't see how he's not a 2 to 3, in the top 2 or 3 discussion. And we're getting 12-1 on our money versus betting 3-1 to win the division as getting 37-1 to win Coach of the Year. So that's my Brandon Staley tout. If you can find it on your books at, plus at 30-1 or wherever, go ahead and lock it in. I think that there's a lot of value in that. Whether it comes home or not, obviously not going to come home that often at 37-1, but it doesn't have to come home that often to turn a profit.
You said Herbert's top 4. I need to know who are the 3 ahead of him, and in what order?
I'm not really sure the order, but I mean, it's.
Have you been?
I mean, I do think. I mean, Burrow
Number one, Tom Brady. Okay, we'll just get that one out of the way.
Yeah, definitely Brady's one. It's in some order. Mahomes out.
One's
Mahomes,
boring.
Allen.
Yeah, one's boring. It's 2
and
3
order. I'm gonna leave this podcast right now.
This is the most important. Have you been orange pilled?
I love.
Are you Burrow or Allen?
But honestly, if I was redrafting today, I might take Herbert too. I mean, I think Herbert is. Herbert might legitimately be the best quarterback in the NFL, and the one thing that has been holding him back has been Joe Lombardi.
Well, hold up about that. We need to pump the brakes because Mahomes is by far and away the greatest to ever put on a uniform.
Brady's still the greatest.
Let's not.
Brady.
What do you mean? No,
Brady's done it for 20 years.
He's
so
not.
let's go.
You had to win a game
Of
tomorrow.
course,
You wouldn't take Patrick
the shell
Mahomes.
of 46-year-old Tom Brady.
No,
Brady was turning and handing.
This is not a Brady. This is not a Brady
Super
podcast.
Bowls. Well,
but I really think the top 4 there is very razor thin differences between them. I don't yet put Hurts in that category because he has just the ultimate roster around him and the perfect
playing
scheme.
on easy mode.
Yeah, he's definitely playing on easy mode. To me, the real question is, when does Trevor Lawrence introduce himself to that discussion? I think he's the next guy to get up in that top 4 or 5. But yeah, I think it's pretty much a coin flip between those top 4. It depends on the day you ask me. Sometimes I have Burrow too, sometimes Herbert, sometimes Allen. So
I just know I can, again, I rule of stubborn. I just know. And this is why throughout the playoffs last year, I just kept clicking the Bengals. Burrow is the new coin. It's just, it is what it is. No one is going to get more public sentiment and run better. I just know this with every fiber of my being than Joe Burrow. This guy is going to be the biggest luck box, 20 years of average play, but the gods are going to grace him with unbelievable outcomes. I just know it. I know it. He's Brady. He is Brady 2.0.
Why aren't we talking about how easy his life is?
Burrow's life?
Yeah.
What do you mean? He's got the best position group.
Exactly.
He's got the easiest life ever.
Well, yeah, I like Burrow, but come on. I would agree that I think Justin Herbert could be QB2. I know it's crazy, but I would easily take Josh Allen there, but it wouldn't stun me if Herbert was better in the next couple of years. I mean, I love Herbert as well, so I think he was very hamstrung by an extremely awful coaching
you're
staff.
looking at the difference between Burrow and Hurts. I mean, Burrow's doing it with, stiff ass coach and mediocre offensive line. Like, it's not even. Yeah, he might have the position group, but I don't necessarily think like their offense is built. And that's another team. Like, I've really liked the Bengals a lot over the last few years. I like Burrow and I like this team, but that division is tough, and they're getting way too much love as far as a favorite. I'm on fade the Bengals win totals. What'd you say? It was like 11.5 or something insane. Like, I mean, that division is for sure the toughest division in. Well, I mean, I'm going to say that they're the toughest division in the NFL, honestly, because I think the Ravens are better than the Jets, and I think the Browns are as good or better than the Dolphins, and I think the Steelers are better than the Patriots. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's the toughest division in the NFL. So I don't think anybody should be as low as the Bengals are. They've won a lot of coin flippy games, so it's not like they're out there they're not out there whipping people like the Eagles are.
Coin's always coming up Burrow. Always coming up Burrow. All right, those are our NFC touts for the 2023 NFL season. We're gonna have some player props next week, and then I think we have an open week before ODB. I think we have to fire up the head coach quarterback draft. ODB's had this idea. We draft head coaches and quarterbacks. We argue, which is obviously what's going to happen. And I think it'll be a good time.
My idea is that we build a team and there's nothing behind us. So it's not like you're drafting Jalen Hurts with this Eagles team. You're building a new team. And instead of drafting, you can draft all the positions. You just draft quarterback. And then you just draft head coach, or vice versa. So it's not like we have Lamar Jackson with this coaching staff and this offensive line and this run game. We have Lamar Jackson, and we're starting him out, and he could have receivers, he could not. He could have an offensive line, he could not. So who do you want to build your franchises around? And I think that could lead to a lot of interesting discussions, and also kind of really dissect like who are the stars and who are the the products of the system.
Aaron Rodgers, 1.1. Lock it in. That's the pod. Follow these guys on Twitter, at Donnie_Peters, at Mo Nawara, and now a very easy Twitter handle now that it's been broken down for me by Mr. Baker, at AU David B. Go Tigers. I'm at Rich T. Ryan. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy Hard Knocks. That's what I'll be doing at the end of this podcast. My beloved New York Jets, all in everybody's face. Can't wait. See you next week. Until then, peace.